The Stanley Parable first came out in 2013 and was an instant hit. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, released in 2022, adds some unbelievable additions that you don't want to miss out on. The game is very self-aware and creates a very special experience where it almost feels like instead of you playing the game is playing you. You definitely want to jump into this game as blind as possible. You play as a man named Stanley, and the story is told through the narrator. The narrator explains that Stanley's job is quite dull, boring, and uninteresting, as all he does is push buttons, but while he was working, he didn't notice that everyone in his office had disappeared. You take control as Stanley and move through the empty halls until you come to a pair of doors where the narrator says that Stanley went through the door on his left. Here is your first of many decisions you can make, to follow orders or to go off the beaten path. But who's to say that it is actually following orders if you do what the narrator is saying that you will do? But on the other hand, if you don't follow what the narrator says, then that is what is actually happening anyways. And maybe we have an unreliable narrator. These are the types of predicaments the game puts you in constantly. And while there are some story beats here and there, it gets pretty crazy. The constant surprise is very entertaining.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs.
Playing the game is incredibly simple, for all you are doing is running around and interacting with doors and buttons. That doesn't take away from what the game is trying to accomplish with what it is trying to portray through its storytelling though. If anything, it only authenticates it. The game is actually super funny, and the voice of the narrator provides plenty of amusing moments. The sound of music is only really noticeable when the game wants it to be noticeable, which is kind of the point of the entire experience as well. Nonetheless, the Stanley Parable is a fun game to come back to even when you're done. I never had the feeling in a long time where I immediately want to keep jumping back in and just walk around for no reason. The Stanley Parable is very clever in how they are able to make the player digest various abstract forms of ideas, whether they know it or not.
And so the boss had assigned it an extra.
I give the Stanley Parable an 8 out of 10.
But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad,
Superliminal is similar to the Stanley Parable by presenting inscrutable concepts by marrying its story and gameplay designs, but Superliminal is condensed in a much more digestible way. The character you play as goes to the Pierce Institute to be part of a program called Somnosculpt, which provides dream therapy for its patients. Your character is asleep and reaches a testing-like environment, but ends up getting stuck in different loops of their own dreams. With the help of the voice of Dr. Glenn Pierce, you need to escape the construct of yourself and the warping reality you are unconsciously putting yourself in. Because the game takes place in a dreamscape, you can shape your non-reality to your will. You can pick up objects and resize them simply by looking at them from different angles. The way you perceive items lets you turn small objects big and big objects small. You can put items on buttons that are far away by how you are looking at it. You will have to use these abilities to traverse the dream world and platform your way to succeed in waking up. The game is constantly throwing a new challenge at you by bending and breaking the way you think with not only how the dream world works, but by the rules of how you can interact with the world. The game plays off of your expectations.
If you see your parents, please punch them in the face as hard as you can and immediately run away.
The music is amazing. A lot of the time there is relaxing, non-threatening elevator-like music that is paired to what you would think a welcoming sleep clinic would play to create a peaceful environment. The music in later levels is ominous while still being able to be dreamlike. The music has this detective feel as if you are trying to pull back the curtain and uncover the truth, and really feels like you're in a race against time. It makes you feel like you may be in danger because you can't wake up. Superliminal is a must-play game and is really crafty in its design. I don't want to say much in order not to spoil any of it. The game has a lot of different secrets and collectibles as well. There's always gameplay twists to unravel and dream illusions to untangle. If you can't get enough of this world, there is a challenge mode and commentary mode that you can sink some hours into after you complete the game. If you are a fan of the concept of dreams in general, or deceptive and hallucinogenic puzzles like I am, this is the easiest recommendation you could ever get from me. I give Superliminal a 9 out of 10. Maquette is another puzzle adventure game where the world is deceptive in the way that things may not always appear as they seem. In contrast to the Stanley Parable and Superliminal, the puzzles in Maquette are a lot more straightforward and you don't have to be so perceptive. The story revolves around two people who meet and end up dating each other. Playing the game is almost like a representation of the ups and downs and happiness and turmoil the relationship goes through. While the game isn't as open-ended as the past two games I talked about, the step-by-step procedure is a lot more engaging than I thought it would be. The puzzles are satisfying to figure out. Basically, there's a table with different things on it, and inside that table is a table, and outside that table is the world you inhabit, which is what is on the table. Reacting to different objects can move different things on each level of this realm, which may allow you to get another item to continue on. The world is simply cool, and how everything is set up and what it represents is an inventive way of storytelling. It's a cool world to be in and play in. The game controls fine, which is nice with how disorienting things can be at times. There were some frame rate dips when I was doing things too fast. I thought the story was going to be cheesy, especially with how hammy the dialogue is. There's lots of lovey-dovey talk in this, but I think overall it ended up being very heartfelt. I wouldn't mind seeing another game with the same gameplay mechanics. The music was my favorite part of the game. It really made the story moments hit harder. The wise choice and music complemented the story well. While Maquette is overall a fun puzzle game with a sweet story, I couldn't recommend it to everyone since the story is inevitably the main drive of the game, since everything you're interacting with unfolds more of it. The story being about an incredibly messy relationship can sour the mood as well, but the message is meaningful. Playing the game, while straightforward, is actually fun with a rewarding sense of accomplishment after figuring out a tough puzzle. I give Maquette a 7 out of 10.